Hello, my name is Joshua Keith, and this is theburningcoal.com, a website dedicated to God's glory, His grace, and our response to it. Today, we're going to do another Monday motivation, and we're going to be focused on pursuing peace. Now, in Romans chapter 12, Paul is talking about what it means to be a Christian, seeing what God has done for us, seeing how God has done everything for us, and has done this plan so that all people can be at peace with Him. What is it that we should be doing for other people? Well, one of the things he talks about is let love be without hypocrisy. And he says in verse 18, one of the implications of that, if possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all. This is an important command for us to follow and to understand. We need to make sure that we are not antagonists in the world, antagonists to the world. The truth of the matter is that we know that the light is something that the darkness hates, and that Jesus as a teacher was rejected by people because of His message. And so if we're going to follow in Jesus' footsteps, there are going to be plenty of reasons why people are going to be upset with us, they're going to be angry with us, because we're trying to teach the truth. But what that should not mean is that we are doing things that are unrighteous, unholy, unloving, that cause friction between us and others. Because when we do that, we give them an excuse to disregard the rest. And so we need to be at peace with all, and we should be striving for peace every day in our walk with God. And so just a few things to keep in mind with this. First of all, we need to be at peace with God. And we'll notice that God actually sets the example for us in how to, as much as it depends on you, be at peace with all men. God did exactly that. He did that for us. He did everything in His power to restore the relationship, even providing a sacrifice, so that way our sins could be forgiven. However, if we're not careful, we may ignore that sacrifice. We may focus on ourselves and what it is that we want rather than what God has called us to be. We may declare war on God because of our own selfish desires, because of our own pride, because of our own lusts. And so that should never be how it is. We should always be striving to have peace with God, because if we can't have peace with God, who has done so many things for us already, then how do we expect to be at peace with others? Furthermore, we need to have peace with ourselves. Again, if we're not at peace in our own hearts, how are we going to be at peace with those around us? The fact that we are anxious, that we are angry, that we are bitter, that we are stressed out, those things bleed over into our relationships with other people. And so if we want to have peace with others, if we want to do everything within our power, we need to be at peace with ourselves. Well, what do I mean by that? The same idea of what Paul talks about in Philippians chapter 4, verses 6 through 7, where we give everything to God. We're not relying on ourselves, but we're relying on God. And we take all our prayers and our supplications to Him so that He can answer them. And with that, we can have a peace that passes understanding. And so by relying on God and having that peace with God, we can see how much easier it will be then to go and have peace with others, because we're not going to be acting out of our anxieties, out of our fears, after our bitterness. We're going to be acting out of peace. And so from that, we should be pursuing peace with others. We should be looking for opportunities to mend any rifts that we have. And again, we should be exemplary in our conduct. We should not be giving people excuses for why they have strife and bitterness towards us. Instead, we should be living as God would want us to live. We should be letting our love be without hypocrisy. It's very easy for us to allow bitterness and anger to take hold. And so whenever we have these enemies that are there and they've wronged us, we root for bad things to happen for them if we don't check our hearts. We look for God's justice to come upon them instead of them being able to make peace with God themselves. And that's not the attitude that God calls us to have. We let God take care of vengeance. But for us, we strive to make peace with them. And in doing so, we show God's example and hopefully bring them to peace with God as well. And so, in all things, let us be pursuing peace with all men. I hope this lesson blesses you in your walk in His kingdom.